Ethan turving amidst a tide of admiring gazes. After he passed, James muttered to himself, his voice thick with awe. Brother Ethan is terrifying. I need to work even harder. Leaving echoing depths of the Shadowmire, Ethan stepped out into the bright claimer of Crystalport Sector 3. His eyes immediately flicked to the system panel floating before him, displaying 6,400 evolution points. A clear understanding settled over him, and he dismissed the panel with a silent command. He approached a staff member nearby, his demeanor polite despite the exhaustion clinging to him. Excuse me, he began smoothly. Where is the designated area for exchanging loot for points? The staff member offered a warm smile. It's on the second floor. Just go upstairs and turn right, you'll see it. Would you like me to show you, okay? Ethan nodded, accepting the gesture of kindness without hesitation. At Crystalport Sector 3 Superpower Base, on the second floor, the staff member pointed toward a large window bay. It's right there. This is going to be troublesome, Ethan murmured under his breath. He adjusted the weight of his tactical backpack and pulled his suitcase along, moving to the designated area. The window was expansive, more than enough space for him to empty every piece of salvage he carried. Ethan poured all the spoils onto the glass surface. At the sight, the staff member's pupils dilated instantly. So many crystals, nearly half of them are second order. He gasped, leaning closer. This isn't a crystallized armored rhinoceros, and a blue spotted tiger. Judging by their size, they must both be upper-tier second-grade materials. The sheer volume and quality of the spoils Ethan had displayed already surpassed what most teams could boast. Worse still was the youth of the man presenting them. But then the staff member paused, his brow furrowing in thought. Perhaps this young man had powerful teammates who simply hadn't arrived. To address the unspoken question, the staff member asked, "Why didn't your teammates accompany you?" Typically, when exchanging loot, entire teams came together. After all, once points were logged into the Superpower Base's identity system, records became private. If only one person was present, there was a risk of misappropriation. Only with everyone watching could absolute fairness be guaranteed. This had happened before. Thus, point redemption always required the full team presence. Ethan shook his head slowly. I did all of this by myself. His tone was unnervingly calm, as if discussing something utterly trivial. Huh, you played through this all alone. The staff member's mouth gaped slightly. A visible ripple of unease crossed his face. He wondered if this young man could look so youthful, yet actually be over 25. The staff member began counting the items. A pair of cabbage monkey ears cost 19 points. The crystallization of the ironclad rhinoceros costs 90 points each. As he methodically counted Ethan's spoils, the staff member finally managed to ask, "May I ask how old you are this year?" Ethan scratched his head, momentarily puzzled by the question, but he answered nonetheless. 18 years old. The staff member froze mid-motion. The air seemed to thin around them. 18. Entering the Shadowmire alone, and with this much loot. Ethan's brief statement caused a palpable stir among the other staff members present. Meeting the stunned gaze of the employee, Ethan simply offered him an unreadable look. Seeing that, the staff member could only force a strained smile and continue his inventory count. After the final tally, even the staff members looked somewhat incredulous. That totals 2,540 points. Please hand over your identification document from the special ability base. Ethan provided his bank card number and requested the transfer of blue star coins. Then, a notification flashed, the account ending in 62. Received a transfer of 2,540,000 yuan on X month X day at X hour X minute. Current balance was updated. The moment the money officially hit his account, Ethan felt an immediate surge of elation. It was a staggering sum, over 2 million yuan. To earn more than 2 million in just 7 days before the semester even began was nothing short of phenomenal. Of course, cost investment had been equally massive. First, a spirit maintenance pill costing 200,000 points. Second, 21 energy potions, totaling 110,000 blue star coins. Finally, his battle suit was heavily damaged, having cost him over 100,000 blue star coins when he purchased it. Overall, earning 200,000 yuan a day was a level of income he could never have imagined achieving in his past life. Leaving the superpower base, Ethan found himself at a nearby restaurant. Despite its prime location, The dishes were outrageously expensive, and the taste did nothing to justify the price tag. But necessity ruled. Food was essential for survival. In the Shadowmire he had subsisted on compressed biscuits for days, and his stomach rumbled with deep hunger. After wolfing down 10 bowls of rice, Ethan hailed a taxi and headed straight back toward campus. He drifted into sleep within the cab. "Sir, we've arrived at Crystalport Academy." The driver reminded him several times, but eventually, he had to physically nudge Ethan awake. Ethan felt groggy, his expression bearing the disorientation of someone who had just been pulled from a deep slumber. He wondered why he felt even sleepier after such a short nap. Upon entering Crystalport Academy, Ethan bypassed the mission center and ignored the cleaning station where he could have scrubbed the bloodstains from his weapons and battle clothes. Instead, he walked straight toward the dormitories on shared electric bikes. He was utterly drained, his eyelids felt weighted with lead, screaming for rest. As he neared the dormitory entrance, 2 girls approached him. One was petite and ceaselessly chatty. The other possessed a graceful figure, barely contained by a simple white t-shirt, complemented by blue jeans that gave her an effortlessly youthful vibe. It was Emily and Amelia, returning to their dorm together. Spotting of the naturally effusive Emily started to greet him, but Amelia gently placed a hand on her arm, halting her. Amelia narrowed her eyes slightly, sensing something amiss with Ethan. "Ethan wrong. Are you in such bad shape?" she thought to herself. Suddenly, the memory of last week when Ethan had gone into the Shadowmire flashed through her mind. The truth struck her. Ethan must have encountered some serious danger down there. She wondered why he was so determined to enter the Shadowmire, and if he was truly that desperate for money. Amelia couldn't quite grasp the full weight of his desperation. "Brother, you're back." Back in the dorm room, Ethan murmured to Ethan, "I think I'll be confined to my own room for the next few days." The implication was clear: do not knock on his door out of mere curiosity. With that warning, he ascended the spiral staircase and retreated into the sanctuary of his bedroom. Even during this short journey, Ethan couldn't help but muse aloud. The after-effects of these spirit maintenance pills are truly potent. He felt too drained for a bath. The moment his fingertips brushed against the mattress, exhaustion claimed him and he collapsed onto the soft bedding. 1 day passed, then 2. Finally, on the 4th morning, Ethan slowly surfaced from a deep slumber as the first tentative rays of sunlight streamed through the large window, painting stripes across his face. He rubbed his eyes, letting out a long, shuddering breath. A good night's sleep, he thought vaguely. I feel much better. How long had he slept? Ethan subconsciously reached for his phone on the bedside table and flicked it on. The screen revealed a startling truth: he had slept for 4 full days. A sudden pang of emptiness hit him. "I'm starving. We need to go out and get something to eat." He pressed a hand against his rumbling stomach. Before venturing downstairs, Ethan performed the necessary rituals: washing up, taking a shower, and changing clothes. After all this long convalescence, he hadn't bathed in ages. He even washed the quilt and sheets, determined to start fresh. Once ready, he descended the stairs. There, waiting for him, was Ethan, who had clearly orchestrated a clandestine feast of fried skewers in the living room. "Brother Ethan, you're finally awake." Hearing his voice, Ethan turned his head. Seeing him revived, Ethan's face lit up with genuine delight. He picked a handful of golden brown enoki mushrooms and offered them to Ethan. Without hesitation, Ethan accepted the offering. Starving, he needed sustenance desperately. "Heave, stop eating. Leave some for me," Ethan pleaded, his voice bordering on tears. Ethan devoured the skewers laid out on the table like a wolf feasting at a kill. It was clear that Ethan had barely touched a third of the bounty himself had purchased. Taking a large bite from a fried duck wing, Ethan gently patted Ethan's shoulder. "It's okay. I'll treat you to a proper lunch." "Really?" Ethan's despair instantly melted into sheer joy. "How could me?" Ethan smiled faintly, the words hanging in the air. The fried skewers were nothing more than a meager appetizer for someone who had been confined to bed for 4 days. After leaving the dorm, Ethan headed straight for the cafeteria to fill his stomach properly. In the bustling hall, he bumped into an acquaintance, Richard, a senior student and a classmate of his teacher, Arthur. Naturally drawn by the familiarity, Ethan gravitated toward their table. "Junior brother Ethan, it's been too long. Where have you been making your fortune lately? Richard greeted him, deploying an old internet meme. Ethan blinked, genuinely confused. He was a high school senior with virtually no experience navigating the wild currents of online humor. He simply answered truthfully, I haven't gotten rich, just nay of little money. 2 million blue star coins certainly didn't qualify as a fortune. His daily cultivation demands consumed vast amounts of those coins. If he remained idle, his reserves would dwindle quickly. Junior of Ethan, Richard continued, glancing at the 10 empty bowls before him and observing Ethan's continued ravenous eating. Has your appetite increased lately? Even a combat-type ability user couldn't consume this much, could they? I just got back from the Shadowmire and slept for several days. I'm completely starved, Ethan explained with a wary smile. After leaving the cafeteria, Ethan returned to his dormitory and took the Black Dragon Spear to the cleaning center. He then proceeded to the mission center to submit his latest tasks, earning a total of 25 credits. Finally, he arrived at the resource trading office within the school. Behind the empty counter sat an old man, the very same man Ethan had encountered when he first visited this establishment. Despite the passage of time, the man retained the same vibrant energy and vitality. I need a Class C alloy combat suit and a 20 cubic meter space ring, Ethan stated, cutting straight to the chase. Before coming, he had researched the spatial rings, noting that capacities ranged from low to high in increments of 1, 10, 20, 50, and 100 cubic meters. For anything else or larger, specialized users were required for customization, at an exorbitant cost. Given his current funds, the 20 cubic meter ring was his best choice. It was sufficient for his immediate needs. That will be a total of 1.6 million blue star coins. Please swipe your card, classmate, the old man announced flatly. Ethan's pupils dilated instantly. He had only expected 2 items. It shouldn't require an abacus. A C-grade alloy battle suit costs 400,000 blue star coins, and a 20 cubic meter space costs 1.2 million blue star coins. Together, that makes 1.6 million, the old man clarified. The cost of the C-grade armor, 400,000 coins, was understandable. His own Black Dragon Spear was also C-grade, and had cost over 490,000. But a 20 cubic meter space ring demanded a full 1.2 million blue star coins. It utterly defied Ethan's imagination. He had only researched the capacity, never the price. He remembered seeing on television that a 1 cubic meter ring cost around 30,000 yuan. He assumed a 20 cubic meter unit wouldn't exceed 1 million coins. Not just 1 million, but an extra 200,000. In the end, Ethan paid the full sum. The purchased ring possessed exactly 20 cubic meters of space. He briefly wondered why he hadn't bought 2 10 cubic meter rings, but quickly dismissed the thought. Low-level ability users had limited mental capacity and could only maintain one primary spatial imprint. The sheer cost of this single ring brought to mind the 100 cubic meter space ring Amelia once possessed. Ethan performed a quick, rough calculation in his head. A 100 cubic meter ring would require 6 million blue star coins. This was based on simple multiplication. The actual price must be far higher. The power of the family is truly terrifying, he sighed to himself. With the transaction complete, Ethan didn't forget one final task. I also need to collect this month's cultivation resources. Ethan selected an ice blue spatial ring, noting that its color matched his supernatural ice and snow crown quite well. After placing the ring on his hand, he focused his mental power. Suddenly, he felt a lock mechanism within the ring unlock in his consciousness. The campus scene before him vanished, replaced by empty space. This void had a volume of exactly 20 cubic meters. Beyond this boundary, like an invisible wall in a game, Ethan's consciousness could not extend outward. He brought his awareness back to reality and pointed the spatial ring at his newly purchased C-grade alloy battle suit and the cultivation resources he had just acquired. With a flash of light, both items disappeared into the ring's depths. Now that everything was safely stored, Ethan knew it was time for him to head back to his dorm. Upon returning to his dormitory, Ethan smiled at his friend, mentioning that it was almost time, and promising to treat him to a nice meal. Seeing Ethan finally return, his companion quickly stood up in excitement and gazed at him. Soon, the friend's attention became fixated on the spatial ring adorning Ethan's finger. The friend had said how dazzling it was, even blinding him, jokingly suggesting they could not go out. Ethan understood the joke immediately. He laughed and gently scolded his friend for complaining if his eyes were going to be blinded. Changing the subject, Ethan began flattering him, complimenting that the spatial ring suited his temperament perfectly. The friend teased him about his terrible flattery skills while patting him on the shoulder. Afterward, the two set off together toward the highest-rated restaurant near Crystalport Academy. After a hearty meal, they arrived at the entrance of Crystalport Academy. Ethan informed his companion that he needed to go to his teacher's residence first and that the friend should return by himself. He had already arranged this with Arthur while eating, and it happened that Arthur was also at the residence. Thus, the two parted ways. At Arthur's residence, a serious tone emerged from him as he questioned Ethan. He pointed out that his ice-breaking technique was only at the intermediate level of proficiency and demanded that Ethan work harder. Arthur reminded him that Ethan's junior brother had already mastered the ice explosion technique at the beginner level. After Ethan learned the ice explosion technique, he returned the skill book to Arthur. It was important for everyone present to understand that the content within skill books could only help learners reach a basic level of proficiency. Moving forward, breakthroughs required daily practice and seizing limited opportunities. With the stale book returned, Arthur contemplated giving the ice explosion skill to his level 51 student, Richard. He reminded himself that what was given was merely the right to use, not the right to own. As for more precious resources, he would naturally decide on them, reserving the vast majority for his disciple, Ethan. Arthur then internally questioned if they had reached advanced proficiency in ice-breaking technique after nearly a year of training. After all, without Ethan's terrifying comprehension, one would qualify to formally learn the ice explosion technique after achieving an advanced level of proficiency in ice-breaking technique and laying a solid foundation in related techniques. As expected, Richard indeed disappointed him, leaving Arthur with no choice but to scold him. Ethan stood politely at the doorway, listening without interrupting. Once Arthur finished reprimanding Richard, Ethan stepped forward and announced his presence to his teacher. Upon seeing Ethan, Arthur, who had been angry moments before, instantly switched to a smile. Naturally, Richard also departed, leaving the space solely for Ethan and Arthur. Ethan then declared that his ice blast spell had broken through to the intermediate level of proficiency. He was motivated by both a desire to save face for senior Richard and the realization that demonstrating greater abilities was the only way to acquire more resources from his teacher. He understood that in this world, strength dictated everything. Arthur was somewhat surprised by this rapid progress. He recalled that when his own teacher had taught him an S-class skill during college, it took him 1 month just to learn it, and another 3 months to reach intermediate proficiency. To hear that Ethan had reached the same level in less than a month after receiving the Ice Blast skill book was truly unexpected. With a smile, Ethan suggested demonstrating his abilities, and Arthur simply nodded in agreement. Next, they traveled to the backyard of Arthur's residence. Arthur used his elemental energy to conjure a shield and instructed Ethan to use Ice Blast to unleash his full power. Hearing this, Ethan selected a long spear from the weapon rack nearby, one similar in appearance to his Black Dragon spear. He immediately mobilized his internal energy, suddenly exerting force through his arms without any mercy. With a loud boom, the spear pierced the shield, but when the icy smoke dissipated, the shield remained completely undamaged. Arthur noted that this was normal, stating that only if the shield developed cracks would there be a problem. He then praised Ethan, commenting that the Ice Blast spell had indeed reached intermediate proficiency, and noting that his foundation was quite good, suggesting Ethan must have spent considerable time training. Furthermore, he observed that Ethan had improved much faster than Arthur himself had in his youth, truly surpassing his teacher's former self. Ethan responded with a respectful bow, thanking him for the compliment. Arthur then inquired about the true purpose of their meeting, questioning if it was solely to prove that Ethan's ice explosion technique had reached intermediate proficiency. Ethan affirmed this was not the only reason and stated that he wished to learn skill books that granted sensory abilities, asking Arthur if he had any recommendations. He explained his motivation. The aftereffects of using a spirit maintenance pill were so profound that he did not want to risk using it again. Moreover, resting alone in the underground world carried the inherent risk of attacks from ferocious beasts. Having the ability to sense things would make it much easier to find the tracks of these creatures, thereby increasing his rate of acquiring evolution points. For various reasons, Ethan put it that he needed a special ability that allowed him to perceive things. We also plus rank skill books. Would you prefer to study an A rank or an S rank technique? Meeting Ethan's expectant gaze, Arthur spoke slowly, each word measured and deliberate. SS rank. Without a moment's hesitation. The choice was immediate. High-quality skills, whether in their upper or lower limits, inherently surpassed low-grade ones, and were far less likely to become obsolete. Given the opportunity to absorb superior material, Ethan would naturally gravitate toward the pinnacle of power. Are you certain? Your current proficiency is still at the peak of the first tier. With your existing mental attributes, even a rank mastery would be a significant challenge, let alone S level, Arthur cautioned gently. After all, skills rooted in perception belong to the mental discipline, a field utterly distinct from ice elemental energy. Such a leap was notoriously difficult. Generally speaking, mastering an S-rank mental skill book required a minimum of 1,000 points in pure mental attribute. It will be fine, I have ample time. I intend to proceed straight to S-level techniques. Ethan's eyes held a resolute fire. He thought that since he possessed the system, he only needed to reach a level where he could grasp its fundamentals. He did not need to absorb every single character of the skill book, just to achieve basic proficiency. Once that beginner threshold was crossed, let alone intermediate, advanced, or master, as long as evolution points were available, progress would be seamless and unobstructed. At worst, he mused, he could simply try it himself first. If all else failed, he would heed his teacher's advice and settle for a lower grade skill. Having such self-assurance is commendable. Keep that spirit burning, I believe in you. Arthur clapped him on the shoulder, offering genuine encouragement. He had witnessed too many miracles surrounding Ethan, events far beyond what he had ever seen in his own lifetime. For this reason, he was willing to continue placing his trust in the young man. Then, Arthur continued, this particular skill book is called Detective Technique, and it resides deep within the library archives. However, it belongs to a different department's curriculum, and many senior students from other faculties are currently mastering it. It's one of the most popular skills, so I cannot simply borrow it for you. But if you mention my name, those in charge should grant you several extra hours of study time. I understand, Ethan nodded. He mused internally that Detective Technique was accompanied by a faint sense of awe at the imposing title. Just then the doorbell chimed at Arthur's residence. The housekeeper, who had been tidying the living room, opened the door to admit a woman whose appearance was gentle and refined. Hearing the sound, both Arthur and Ethan moved from the backyard back into the main living area. Old Arthur, the tree fruit sent from above have arrived. The woman placed a small, ornate box containing the fruit upon the coffee table. She then glanced at Ethan, her expression shifting to curiosity. Is this your student? Or perhaps your disciple? She had heard whispers that Crystalport Academy had finally enrolled a student who had awakened an S-level ice-type superpower this year. But she did not know what he looked like, and was unsure if the young man standing before her matched the description. This is my newly accepted disciple, Ethan, who has awakened an S-level ice-type ability. Arthur introduced them. And you must be Eleanor, the Dean of the Water-type Academy. It was impossible to miss how deliberately Arthur emphasized the words, S-class, a subtle undertone of pride woven into his greeting. Stop pretending in front of me. You know there are no specially recruited freshmen in the water department this year, right? Eleanor laughed, her tone sharp as she scolded him playfully. She then turned abruptly and hurried out of Arthur's residence, moving with an air of urgent business. Arthur walked to the center of the living room and began opening the box containing the tree fruit, peeling back layers upon intricate seals. The container was secured by multiple levels of magical wards. Even the ones sent directly to him required considerable effort to breach. There was no other way, the security measures were simply too sophisticated. What kind of tree fruit is Dean Eleanor speaking of? And why are the seals so complex? Ethan couldn't help but ask, his curiosity piqued. You should know how many superpowers exist in this world, shouldn't you? While channeling his mental power to break the outermost seal, Arthur simultaneously projected a sliver of his consciousness toward Ethan. Wesadu. Adoria, the Beautiful Kingdom, the White Continent Alliance, the Black Continent Alliance, and the Ocean Continent Alliance, the 5 major superpowers. Ethan had learned these facts back in elementary school. Precisely. In the largest known underground world, a plant called the verdantwood grows. Access to this subterranean passage is not granted to ordinary ability users. One must first break through to the 7th level Grandmaster realm to be allowed entry and view it. The verdantwood is a colossal giant, reaching 1,000 meters in height. Every 4 years, it bears an abundance of fruits. These fruits are categorized into 3 grades based on their potency: S+ grade resources, SS+ grade resources, and SS+ grade resources. These precious materials are distributed jointly by the 5 superpowers through binding contracts. In our Eldoria, we typically allocate S+ grade tree fruits to 7th level Grandmasters once a year, Arthur explained. As I'm a master of ice, the fruit allocated here naturally possesses the effect of activating the latent ice elemental energy within my body. He added that active ice elemental energy translates to an ice elemental damage bonus in combat. While it does not directly increase experience points or significantly boost realm advancement, its actual improvement is far greater than mere level progression. At that moment, Arthur finally shattered the last seal, and 3 tree fruits appeared in his outstretched hand. The fruit was entirely an icy blue, constantly emitting a chilling aura. To Ethan's eye, it resembled a dramatically oversized blueberry. Less than a minute after being exposed to the air, a delicate layer of frost formed around the fruit's surface. Here, take one. Arthur offered a tree fruit to Ethan. No, teachers are resources sent to you from above. How can I possibly accept them? Besides, they are S+ level materials. They are incredibly valuable. Ethan shook his head gently, refusing the gift. Take it if I give it to you. You cannot receive something for nothing, but you must promise me one thing. Arthur laughed heartily. Since his teacher had insisted, Ethan no longer hesitated and accepted the fruit from his hand. What? Ethan asked. He realized that he had a very high probability of succeeding in this task. Otherwise, his teacher would not ask. When we meet Owen's students at the freshman competition, we must not hold back. We need to beat him thoroughly. Arthur's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthless determination. I'd initially planned for you to avoid their sharp edges, but seeing how well you are performing now, I have no more concerns. Disciple understands. Ethan nodded slightly and replied. He knew that Richard, one of the senior students, often spoke to him about teacher Arthur. Owen was frequently mentioned among them. He was the dean of the Fire Academy. Not only were they rivals due to their elemental affinities, but they disagreed on countless matters in daily life. He was so arrogant because he always seemed to attract specially recruited fire-type freshmen every year. Fortune had shifted. Ethan's excellence far surpassed Arthur's initial expectations. The freshman competition loomed just around the corner, and the time for him to finally shine was almost here. Leaving Arthur's residence, Ethan carried with him 2 immensely valuable resources: the S-grade herb blood, piercing grass obtained in the Shadowmire, and the first-grade resource verdantwood fruit that Arthur had gifted him. He headed directly for the Ethereum workshop at the school. He knew neither of these materials could be consumed raw, because his current physique was not yet capable of withstanding such potent energy. Attempting to force them into his body would cause the terrifying elemental power to rampage through him, inevitably leading to explosion and death. Therefore, they absolutely needed to be refined into individual pills for controlled consumption. Ethan walked to the appropriate window within the Ethereum workshop, carefully handing over the few herbs he had gathered along with the fruit from the verdantwood. He requested that these resources be processed into medicinal pills. The person stationed at the counter was a senior student who possessed fire-type abilities and appeared to be working there part-time. The senior student smiled slightly and agreed to assist him. However, after taking a closer look at both the herbs Ethan brought and the verdantwood fruit, her expression shifted dramatically. She displayed a mixture of shock and confusion, questioning the true origin and nature of such rare items. Realizing that she could not handle materials of this caliber alone, the senior student immediately decided to call for the section chief. A few seconds later, a young man with a peaceful appearance walked in from the door. Ethan subconsciously looked back and recognized him. It was his senior, Kevin. Kevin greeted him, expressing surprise at finding him within the Ethereum workshop. He inquired about the type of pills Ethan intended to refine. When Ethan showed him both the herbs and the fruit, confirming that they were resources he had acquired, Kevin immediately acknowledged the exceptional quality of the blood. Piercing grass. From its sheer rarity, Kevin deduced with certainty that it must have been sourced from the Shadowmire. Kevin then brought up the upcoming freshman competition. He suggested that after the competition concluded, Ethan should seriously consider joining his seniors' team. Kevin reasoned that since Ethan had first returned from the Shadowmire and become a formal superhuman, he must have advanced significantly in his cultivation level by now. Ethan thanked Kevin for the generous invitation but decisively declined. He felt that while joining a large team might offer support, it would inevitably come with a significant team fee. More importantly, he knew that complex interpersonal relationships could easily cause friction, especially since new members were often treated poorly by veteran players. Ethan concluded that his own system resources, combined with the guidance of his teachers, were already more than sufficient. A clattering sound echoed down the stairs, signaling an arrival. Ethan turned his head to see the senior student leading a man with a long white beard and wearing a purple robe. The director of the Ethereum workshop. The director approached them, immediately demanding to inspect the blood-piercing grass. Ethan presented both the rare herbs and the fruit, asking for their refinement. The director's gaze was intense, revealing an almost obsessive passion for alchemy. When his eyes fell upon the verdantwood fruit, however, his pupils dilated in visible shock. Both the senior student and Kevin instantly understood that this resource must be something extraordinary. They quickly checked their communication devices, and were stunned by the results. Even the lowest quality of the verdantwood fruit was classified as Ester grade. The director then assured Ethan that he could refine the resources immediately, promising completion within 2 days. He explained that thanks to advancements in technology and his own decades of experience as a 5th-level ability user with an A-level fire-type ability, the process would be swift. As Ethan prepared to depart, he remembered the payment required for such services. The director simply waved off any discussion of money, stating that he was more than happy with the opportunity to refine such rare items, let alone asking for currency. Chapter the 2nd level of the profound nether ice soul body. The moment Ethan stepped out of the Ethereum workshop, his phone rang. He answered it and saw that the caller was none other than his mother, Sarah. After receiving the call, there wasn't much to do. Ethan learned that his family had moved from their old, dilapidated rental house to the Whisperwind residential area in the city center. This revelation was significant. The Whisperwind residential area was a place reserved for city leaders of all ranks and their relatives. Natru's move was attributed to the benefit of his awakened S-class superpower. Upon hearing this news, Ethan felt a wave of delight. His mother had worked tirelessly throughout her life, transitioning from a school beauty to a working-class woman. It was finally time for her to enjoy life's comforts. Ethan returned to his dormitory. After dealing with matters in the Shadowmire, he had slept for 4 days and subsequently managed various affairs. However, he hadn't yet utilized any of the system's accumulated evolution points. He found no in the living room on the 1st floor. He mused that since he had fed someone until they were stuffed, they must have returned to their bedroom to sleep. Ethan walked up the spiral staircase and entered his own room, immediately sitting down on the bed. With a mere thought, the status panel appeared before him. The interface displayed Nameth and Evolution Points 6400, Special Ability Ice Crown Yase, Realm Upper First Tier, Mental State 260 Odd Blood 500 Calories. His skills included Gunplay Advanced, Melee Combat Beginner, Ice Ring GD Intermediate A, Ice Flash B Beginner S, Ice Blayer Beginner Escher, Frozen Shield A, Beginner A and Ice Blast S Intermediate A. His body green technique was the profound Nether Ice Soul Body, for 1st level N. The sheer number of evolution points, and the dense cluster of upward arrows caught Ethan's eye. He glanced at the status briefly, believing he was about to break through to a lower second tier when something felt wrong. He looked the panel again, scrutinizing the details more carefully. Only then did the truth hit him: his body-tearing technique could actually be broken through. He fell into deep thought, weighing his options. Should he choose to advance his realm, or should he focus on elevating his body-tempering technique? After careful consideration, Ethan made his decision. He would break through the body-tempering technique. His reasoning was simpler: the upward arrow associated with his realm appeared before the one for his body-tempering technique. This indicated that breaking through the latter consumed a greater amount of evolution points. The more points spent, the greater the resulting improvement. With the upcoming freshman competition approaching, Ethan naturally chose the path that offered the maximum possible strength boost. A person's level of attainment does not represent everything. True combat prowess relies on overall physical strength. Having high skills while neglecting fundamental bodily improvements would inevitably lead to defeat by those with superior foundational power. After this internal deliberation, Ethan no longer hesitated and pressed the upward arrow next to his body-tempering technique. A system announcement flashed across his vision. 6,000 evolution points were consumed. The mysterious Ice Soul body advanced from the first level to the second level. The moment the points were deducted, a searing burning sensation spread throughout his entire body. Specifically, his heart felt intensely hot. Thump. Thump. Ethan's heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and the powerful rhythm echoed in his ears. A massive surge of primordial energy flowed directly from his core, shattering all the obstacles that had previously prevented him from establishing a stable energy cycle. Once this wave completed its first cycle, the first bridge was established, completing the tempering of his heart. The process moved swiftly to the liver. The remaining obstacles shattered, and the second cycle was easily established, building the second bridge and completing the liver's tempering. Following these were the spleen, lungs, and kidneys, which underwent the same rigorous tempering process. This ordeal was far from easy. After enduring what felt like 2 hours of intense torment, Ethan slowly opened his eyes. His forehead and back were soaked with cold sweat. He could clearly feel that now that the cycles were established, he possessed a vastly improved ability to mobilize the energy within his body. The human body itself is truly a mystery. With this thought, Ethan immediately reopened the panel to check the changes in his attributes. The interface displayed his name was Ethan. He had 400 evolution points remaining. His S-rank special ability remained the Ice Crown. His realm stood at upper first tier. His mental energy measured 300 Hz, and his QI blood registered 710 calories. His skills listed marksmanship Advanced and hand-to-hand combat Beginner. Most significantly, his body-tempering technique was now the mysterious Ice Soul body Assessor at the second level. Ethan still remembered that when he was at the first level of the profound Nether Ice Soul body, his mental energy had been 260 Hz, and his blood energy 520 calories. Comparing the two figures revealed a massive increase. His ment energy had risen by 40 Hz, and his blood energy had increased by 190 calories. This attribute boost was already terrifying. However, that was not the most crucial point. Most importantly, the establishment of 5 bridges. The creation of the primordial energy cycle had given Ethan a qualitative leap in his control over the ice-type elemental energy within his body. Taking the most basic function of superpowers, such as bursts of power, as an example, Ethan recalled encountering the Shadow Cat in the city when he visited Frostfall Hall for a meal. When using superpower bursts, it was extremely difficult to accurately control the amount of primal energy used by the body, which is why killing even a tiny shadow cat produced so much ice and snow. Now, with improved control over ice-type elemental energy, Ethan could better manage the effects of his ability bursts. He then tested this newfound control, extending his hands and generating snowflakes. The flakes slowly drifted down from his palms, exhibiting an extreme precision that was like a near-perfect work of art. Previously he had been unable to generate snowflakes with such high accuracy. Furthermore, Ethan sensed that the speed at which his body's vital energy recovered had accelerated by approximately 50%. He felt deep satisfaction regarding these results. recognizing that the third level of the body tempering technique involved tempering the meridians, a process that would likely be another huge undertaking. He decided to wait until after the freshman competition, before delving deeper into it. After a moment of reflection, Ethan went to the bathroom next to his bedroom to take a shower, as his clothes were already soaked with cold sweat. Once he had showered, dried his hair, and changed into clean new clothes, Ethan did not waste any time. He immediately set off for the library. Filled with curiosity, he was eager to understand what this S-rank mental skill, detective technique, entailed. The journey to the library was quite long from his bedroom. Even using the shared electric bikes at high speed would take almost an hour of travel. The library of Crystalport Academy was vast. The first floor served as the lending area for all available books, requiring students to register with staff before proceeding upstairs to the second floor reading area. Notably, there was also a free speech area on the first floor, established specifically for people who needed space to speak, such as two students studying the same skill. Ethan recalled an earlier incident when Arthur had directly borrowed the S-rank body tempering technique, Swamming Ice Soul Body. The display of this powerful book had caused considerable discussion among students in the free speech area on the first floor. Fortunately, because the ceiling was covered with special soundproofing material, the two individuals did not disturb each other. After entering the book lending section, Ethan questioned where the mental element skills were located, noting that fire, wind, and lightning elements had been accounted for elsewhere. He soon found books related to mental health in a specific section. His gaze gradually moved upwards as he discovered that S-rank skills were housed at the very top of the counter. Illusionary ray, telekinetic cutting, and finally, detective technique. The sheer luxury of the Crystalport Academy library was surprising to him. Rare S-rank skills, which were seldom found elsewhere, were available here in over a dozen different types, especially within the mental category. Each stayed with approximately a dozen corresponding skill books. It was important to remember that these skill books could not be created by simple photocopying. They required a superhuman possessing master-level proficiency who had to write them out stroke by stroke using their mind and concentration. This demonstrated the terrifying strength of Crystalport Academy. After searching for some time, Ethan finally located his target, the S-rank mental skill, detective technique. He noted that this skill was highly sought after. While several other mental skill books remained, only one copy of the book for detective technique was left. Ethan reached out and took down the skill book, detective technique. As he did so, a pretty figure walked towards him, causing him to turn his head in surprise. She had a slender figure and long, fair legs. This beautiful woman was Amelia. Amelia greeted him with a blink of her beautiful eyes, expressing delight at the coincidence of their meeting. Ethan simply stated that he was studying the skill book. Amelia explained that her special ability was somewhat related to this area, allowing her to learn it faster than most people, and offered to help him with anything he did not understand. Ethan smiled slightly and agreed. However, he immediately pointed out that the skill book in his hands was the last remaining copy on the counter. Amelia's expression shifted, showing a of regret. She then suggested an alternative. She would teach him how to learn the skill book directly to speed up his learning process, provided he gave her half of his reading time in exchange. Ethan readily agreed that this arrangement was acceptable. He reasoned that while self-study was necessary, having someone guide him would undoubtedly accelerate the process. He reflected on Amelia's willingness to help, comparing it to a classmate who had once generously given away the swiftness pill without trying to raise the price when encountering a third-tier ferocious beast in the Shadow Mire. He concluded that accepting her help was merely doing her a small favor. Thus, after registering their books, the two did not proceed to the second-floor reading area. Instead, they went to the free speech area on the first floor. They settled into an inconspicuous corner, where the noise level was low, making it ideal for the upcoming lesson. Facing each other, Ethan turned to the first page of the skill book. Even just looking at these words made his head feel swollen. The tutoring process proved incredibly taxing for Ethan. Not only was learning the skill book inherently difficult, even with Amelia's excellent instruction, but his focus constantly challenged by her presence. Her stunningly beautiful face and melodious voice often caused him to lose concentration, making it hard to immerse himself in his studies. He had to repeatedly remind himself that this distraction was normal. He was not incapable of focusing. 2 hours passed in a blur. Ethan felt that his control over the skill book had reached an astonishing 1%. He knew it was crucial not to be fooled by this low number. He recalled that achieving entry-level proficiency, which is necessary for allocating skill points, only required 10% mastery of the skill book. This meant, if he repeated the learning process for another 9 days, he could directly reach the beginner level of proficiency, allowing him to add points and quickly break through to the junior level of proficiency. Ethan thanked Amelia profusely for her excellent teaching. He realized that without her specialized help, he might have been forced to transfer away to an A-level school, or even a lower-tier institution plagued by perception effects. Amelia simply acknowledged his thanks and returned to studying, flipping through the skill book herself. Ethan made a rough estimate, determining that the skill book's progress was already about 70%, confirming just how much she had mastered the technique. Around 5 p.m., as Ethan prepared to leave the library, he asked Amelia if she needed him to bring her anything for dinner. She confirmed that it was time for a meal and casually requested a serving of Sa Longbao, while continuing to browse through the skill book. Ethan left the library and went to a nearby cafeteria to have his own meal. Shortly after, he returned to the library carrying the steamed buns Amelia had requested. She was still quietly seated in her chair, immersed in her studies. However, there was one new person present: Amalia's roommate and best friend, Emily. Ethan met Emily's gaze, and she returned it with an unnerving intensity. "Amelia, here are your steamed buns." He placed the basket on the table, his movements casual, ready to depart, when a predatory gleam entered Emily's eyes. A slow, knowing grin spread across her face. "Ethan, you even bought dinner for our Amelia. Are you perhaps developing feelings for her?" Before Ethan could formulate a reply, Amelia moved. Her fingers darted out, pinching the soft flesh just above Emily's waist. The gasp of pain that escaped Emily's lips was theatrical and loud. "Hi, I apologize, I was wrong." Amelia released her hand, a triumphant smile gracing her lips. "Thank you, Ethan. Please add me on QQ, I will transfer the money to you later." Govan simply nodded. With that, he left. Once they were alone, Emily fixed Amelia with an expression of profound disappointment. "Amelia, girls should maintain a certain decorum. Look at you, you've already given your QQ account away." "No," Amelia interrupted sharply, her voice laced with disbelief. "How can what you are saying be the same as what I just did?" Hearing the challenge in her tone, Emily couldn't help but roll her eyes dramatically. "Amelia, back in high school, you never had such a close relationship with any boy. Look at you now." She planted her hands on her hips, adopting the posture of a disappointed elder sister. Stop. Before Emily could finish her lecture, Amelia cut her off with a swift rebuttal. "Most of those male students in high school were merely trying to take advantage of my enthusiasm and ask me questions." She paused, letting her gaze soften slightly. "But Ethan is different. In his eye is genuine appreciation, and an undeniable determination to become stronger." Amelia had never held a favorable opinion of her former male classmates. One particularly audacious student had attempted an overly dramatic lunge, only to be met by Amelia's swift kick that sent him crashing into the wall. Following that incident, coupled with some subtle family influence, they had ensured he was sidelined for a period. Since then, no one dared provoke her. Compared to the others, Ethan left an undeniably positive impression. He was tall, handsome, and possessed a commanding presence, the kind of man who made a good impression anywhere he went. Yet, there was something else she wanted to ask him, a deeper question that lingered in the air. But she didn't voice it. She sensed that Ethan's aura had increased significantly. He was growing exponentially stronger. However, that the current situation was vastly different from before, and with the freshman competition looming, she chose her silence. Night fell. After leaving the library, Ethan did not head straight back to his dormitory. Instead, he walked toward the Frostart Ability Hall. He had slept for 4 whole days, and he hadn't had a single day of proper practice. The freshman competition was rapidly approaching, He couldn't afford to slack off now. Ethan immediately activated a sea-level training room and began his marksmanship drills. Shot after shot erupted from the chamber. "I'm still a bit rusty," he muttered to himself, but the words were quickly swallowed by the rhythm of his continued practice. Back in the dormitory, Ethan opened his phone and saw that Amelia had already sent him the transfer confirmation. He accepted it immediately. How could she get Amelia to continue teaching her? Other people's time is valuable. This was just a coincidence. She suddenly remembered Amelia's words. "If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me." Furthermore, since Amelia was still mastering the detective technique, she would inevitably return to the library soon. Doesn't this mean she could easily corner her for advice at the library? While it wouldn't be as fast as direct instruction, it was infinitely better than figuring everything out alone. Ethan typed a message. "Amelia, when do you usually go to the library?" The reply came instantly, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. "She usually goes at 2. At that time, there are fewer people in the library, and leftover skill books like detective techniques are often available. Plus, after 4 hours of study, it's 6 a.m., which is perfect timing for dinner at the nearby cafeteria." Unfortunately, she had some urgent business today and arrived late, leading to all this. Amelia already knows why she messaged. She wants to take the opportunity to ask questions about detective technique. It doesn't bother her, she'll just consider it helping out. As for he as a competitor, Amelia shook her head dismissively. After witnessing his monstrous cultivation speed, she no longer harbored such thoughts. The next day arrived with renewed purpose. In the morning, Ethan headed to the Frostart Ability Hall for intensive training. In the afternoon, he met Amelia at the library. Ethan was astonished to find that after just 1 day of learning, his ability to absorb this skill had improved dramatically. Even on the second day, when he studied mostly independently and only asked Amelia a few questions, his progress increased by over 1%, a staggering rate of improvement. This rapid ascent was a boon for Ethan. It meant he could master detective techniques much sooner than anticipated. He even wondered what expression would cross Amelia's face when she realized that she had suddenly conceived a bright idea: the ability to absorb an entire skill book in a single night. The third day dawned early. Are the pills actually ready? So fast? Upon receiving the message from the alchemy department, Ethan hurried there. One of the elixirs was crafted using S-grade blood-piercing grass and various auxiliary herbs. The other required an even more precious S+ resource, the fruit of the verdant wood. From the moment he handed over his materials to the head alchemist, he had been eager to see the final results. "Young man, the elixir is ready." The head alchemist appeared as Ethan entered, carrying 2 wooden boxes, one in each hand. The box on his left held vibrant red pills. The one on his right contained an ice blue pill. Their colors alone spoke volumes about their potent ingredients. "This," the head alchemist explained with a serious expression, "is a blood-boosting pill that can improve your circulation and ki, but you must not take too much at once. For safety, it is best taken 1 pill every 2 days. He then gestured to the second box. "And this extreme ice pill will activate the ice-type elemental energy within your body. It should also be consumed no more frequently than once every 2 days. "Understood," Ethan acknowledged, accepting both wooden boxes and carefully closing their lids. Ethan first took out a bright red blood-activating pill. The pill caused a subtle stirring in his blood just by its presence. He swallowed the blood-boosting pill in 1 gulp, and instantly, a burning sensation spread from his stomach throughout his body, causing him to tremble slightly. His heart began beating rapidly, establishing a noticeable rhythm in the quiet environment. Because it had awakened ice-type superpowers, an elemental energy flowed within him, creating a unique state of ice and fire. This intense condition lasted for a full 10 minutes before gradually subsiding. Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Ethan let out a breath. Next, he swallowed the extreme ice pill in 1 gulp. He found the effects of this pill to be incredibly potent. Initially, since he had awakened his ice-type ability, Ethan expected no discomfort. But swallowing the extreme ice pill felt like consuming a solid block of ice. The temperature was far too cold for him. He mused internally about how difficult it must be for others, especially when compared to natural materials such as the fruit of the verdant wood. He wished he could absorb things directly, much like Teacher Qin did. Ethan closed his eyes and focused intensely on absorbing the effects of the extreme ice pill. After a few minutes, the discomfort lessened, allowing him to gradually adapt. Eventually, the effects were completely absorbed and Ethan opened his eyes. He felt that the energy within his body had become significantly more active. This was only one pill. The head of the alchemy department had given him a total of 15 pills for refinement. It was clear that after consuming all the extreme ice pills, the activity level of his yuan energy would be greatly improved. Time passed day by day. Ethan maintained his routine, visiting the Frost Art Ability Hall in the morning and the library in the afternoon. More than a week later at 6 p.m., after leaving the library with Amelia, Ethan suddenly opened his panel. A luminous message appeared: Detective Skills, sir, if beginner, yes sir. The sister notes that after so much effort, the skill, detective skill, had finally appeared on his character panel. Furthermore, the familiar upward arrow indicated that he could directly break through to the beginner proficiency level. The next second, a dramatic change occurred. Evolution points -100. Detective skills sex a beginner transitioned into detective skills as SC's elementary. With only 300 evolution points remaining on his panel, a flood of memories rushed into Ethan's mind, and he mastered how to use the detective technique. The moment he grasped the technique, he learned that he could continuously expend a small amount of mental energy to sense all individuals within a radius of 1,500 meters centered on himself for an extended period. He also discovered that, by expending a large amount of mental energy intermittently, he could expand his range of perception. Though this action was extremely short-lived, Ethan immediately tested the skill. The range expanded to 4 times its original size, achieving a radius of 3,000 meters, centered on himself. He realized that the skill's effective range was closely tied to his mental attributes and skill proficiency. He noted that this ability was not X-ray vision. At most, it could only sense the presence and aura of living beings, but nothing else. He concluded that a maximum radius of 3,000 meters would be sufficient for navigating the Shadowmire. After parting ways with Amelia, Ethan felt a wave of awkwardness. Since he had already learned the skill, he no longer needed to visit the library. He recalled asking her many questions earlier in the day and did not want to immediately claim such profound mastery right after leaving the facility. Therefore, he decided that letting the conversation continue until tomorrow would be best. The next day, Ethan headed to the Frost Art Ability Hall for his morning training session. A staff member who recognized him couldn't help but inquire why he had been absent from the afternoon sessions lately, suggesting that something might have happened. She recalled that Ethan used to cultivate diligently for 8 hours or more every morning and afternoon without fail, making his absence noticeable. Ethan simply waved his hand dismissively and explained that he had spent the previous afternoon learning a new skill at the library. Meanwhile, Nia frowned slightly when she saw that Ethan was almost an hour late. She wondered if her classmate had fallen asleep, or if he had been tied up on a phone call via QQ. Since Ethan entered the cultivation room, he placed his phone in the safe outside, and no one answered it. Amelia pondered that perhaps Ethan was busy with something else, and decided to continue with her own studies. For her, only one crucial issue remained before she could fully master the entire skill book. The whole afternoon passed by quietly. She finally closed the skill book and focused her mental power. A sudden realization struck her: she was already able to use the S-rank skill, detective technique, as she left the library alone. A message arrived from Ethan. He apologized for forgetting to mention that he had mastered the detective technique that morning. It turned out, after leaving the cultivation room, Ethan had retrieved his phone and found a missed call record from Amelia via QQ. He therefore quickly fabricated an excuse for her. Amelia froze instantly upon seeing the message. Her breath caught in her throat. She was so profoundly surprised that she could not speak. Just yesterday, Ethan had only learned the basics of the technique, and even asked her questions about it, but today, he had already mastered it. Unable to figure out the reason for this massive leap, she could only conclude that Ethan's comprehension speed was terrifyingly far beyond her own. She reflected that in just one morning, he achieved a sudden realization, like a spring that never stops flowing, completing several weeks' worth of work in an instant. Thinking about it carefully, Ethan's comprehension had always been incredibly impressive, evident when she studied S-rank body tempering techniques and other S-rank skills. She thought to herself that he was truly a monster, someone she could not compare herself to. Amelia regained her radiant smile, feeling a surge of excitement at the prospect of seeing everyone's expressions when they encountered Ethan during the freshman competition. The opening ceremony looms just 2 days away. The stakes are impossibly high. We cannot afford to let our guard drop for a single moment. Ethan rose early this morning, performing his usual routine, brushing teeth, washing his face, and securing his spatial ring before heading toward the Frosted Ability Hall. He was surprised to find that Ethan had arrived even earlier than him. Yet, it was clear from his demeanor that Ethan had been working relentlessly in recent times. Just yesterday, he had declared a breakthrough in his swordsmanship, claiming proficiency at the intermediate level and officially achieving superhuman status, a lower-tier first-rank existence. "Brother, come quickly. Look at this post on the campus forum." Ethan waved, beckoning Ethan downstairs. A post on the campus forum. Ethan leaned closer, a furrow of confusion creasing his brow. A headline caught his eye on Ethan's phone screen, shocking. 2 S-rank Ice-type students have appeared among this year's freshmen. The title crafted with irresistible hooks, words like surprising and unexpectedly, designed to snag the reader's attention. Furthermore, the combination of S-rank and Heist-type, 2 rare attributes, made it an absolute must-click sensation. It practically begs you to click and find out. Another's rank Ice-type has emerged. Ethan's brow tightened slightly as he clicked on the post. The article was no mere clickbait. It confirmed that 2 new students had awakened S-rank Ice abilities this year. The first, naturally, was Ethan, who had been specially recruited by Jessica. The second, however, belonged to an international student from the Shadowlands. His name was listed Jack. "Brother, another S-rank S-type has appeared. I have a feeling he's coming for you," Ethan murmured after reading the details. Ethan merely shook his head, dismissing the urgency with a slight wave of his hand. "It's nothing. If they want war," he thought, "then let them fight." His current cultivation stood at the upper tier of the first rank, and he even advanced the S-rank body tempering technique, the mysterious Nether Ice Soul body, to its second level. Coupled with his mastery of 2 distinct S-rank skills, he felt invincible. How could he possibly lose? Seeing that Ethan remained unperturbed, Ethan suddenly felt a wave of anxiety himself. He didn't waste time idling in the dormitories. Instead, he rushed out and headed straight for the Frosted Ability Hall to train. Though Ethan outwardly displayed no pressure, his actions spoke volumes. He would not slack off. In another corner of campus, a foreign student with dark skin, an exceptionally tall frame, and thick curls was being led to his dormitory. This man, the second freshman at Crystalport Academy this year to awaken an S-level ice superpower. The ancestors were right, Jack whispered to himself, a flush of pure joy spreading across his face. Eldoria truly offers unparalleled living conditions for international students. He hailed from a poor family in the Shadowlands. His elders had spoken glowingly of the universities here, assuring him that they offered exceptional opportunities. Moreover, he was told that many women in this culture held a deep fondness for men like himself. Driven by these expectations, Jack hadn't settled locally but traveled all the way to Eldoria to study. Initially, he had planned to attend Stormhaven College, believing it more prestigious internationally than Crystalport Academy. However, when Emily, an admissions officer at the rival university, mentioned that the only freshman in the entire region to awaken an S-level ice ability was enrolled at Crystalport Academy, Jack's plans pivoted instantly. It wasn't logic, it was a strange, competitive instinct taking hold. Back in his own mind, the villa before him looked nothing short of opulent. Classical decor, manicured gardens, blooming flowers, gentle streams, and elegant bridges. It was breathtaking. Coming from poverty in the Shadowlands, Jack had never known such luxury. He felt overwhelmingly joyful. In reality, this wasn't special treatment for international students. Every student lived in a villa. He only occupied a 2-story residence, because there were no other students from his homeland to share it with. It was hardly an exception within the sprawling campus grounds of Crystalport Academy. With immense excitement, he opened the dormitory door and stepped into the villa. The living room was vast, its floors spotless. Furnished, exquisite craftsmanship, everything delighted and surprised Jack. "I've seen the dorms, and the conditions are incredible." He paused, a slight smile involuntarily touching his lips. "Now it's time to try the second thing our ancestors told us about." He left the villa, intending to strike up conversation with two girls. Though he might be viewed as poor locally, who would know? As Jack walked through the dormitory area, he soon encountered two sophomores strolling toward him. They were laughing and chatting, their silvery laughter ringing out carelessly, completely oblivious to his presence. "You two are so beautiful. I'm Jack, a student here studying abroad. Could we get to know each other?" Jack flashed what he believed was a charming smile and spoke with blunt confidence. This was the wisdom of his ancestors. They claimed that many women in Eldoria craved praise from men. Yet they also noted that most local men were reserved and awkward. Therefore, speaking frankly greatly increased one's chances of success. The two sophomores exchanged glances, frowned slightly, said nothing, and simply veered around him, leaving. After they passed, their silvery laughter resumed its careless rhythm. Jack scratched his curly hair, utterly dumbfounded. What is happening? Why is this different from what our ancestors described? It must be my expression, he muttered to himself. Let me try again. He repeated the attempt. The result was far worse. This time the senior not only left immediately but did so with a clear look of distaste on her face. This blow struck Jack like a physical punch. His ancestors had guaranteed this approach worked. They even shared photos and videos in their group chat, which had excited him when he saw them. Now that he was trying to replicate it, why wasn't it working? Well, Jack sighed heavily, sinking onto a stone bench by the roadside. Just as Destea began to settle over him, a senior with long, wavy hair gently patted his back. She smiled warmly and expressed her genuine admiration for men like Jack, men who were charming. "Thank you. Actually, beautiful lady, you are very charming too." Jack felt an overwhelming rush of joy. What incredible stroke of luck. He never expected the prey to take the bait willingly. In truth, despite the senior student's willing interest, something else was at play. She was a veteran of countless battles, and in one of them, she had sustained a minor injury. Jack's appearance intrigued her. He represented something exotic, a specialty from the Shadowlands that she had never encountered before. The opening ceremony for the 2052 class of Aethelgard Academy was today. Ethan, having just roused himself from sleep, found his thoughts immediately drawn to the panel he opened. It displayed his current attributes in stark detail. Name Ethan. Evolution points 200, special ability Ice Crown, rated S, realm upper first tier, mental energy 328, Kai and 250 calories, skills included marksmanship advanced, melee combat intermediate, ice ring Issy Dias intermediate, ice fast aid beginner, ice blade airs a beginner, frozen shield a beginner, ice blast assessor intermediate and detective skills SS of beginner, body tempering technique, profound nether ice soul body rated S as second level. The panel impossibly rich, a display of power that few students entering this year could rival. He recalled that just days ago, he had managed to push his combat skills from beginner to intermediate, a feat costing only 100 evolution points. It was an investment that yielded tangible improvement in close quarters fighting, proving its worth. Satisfied with the metrics, Ethan slipped into the school uniform provided by the welcoming teacher. The fabric felt substantial and finely woven. It was clearly crafted from premium materials, settling against his skin with a comfortable weight. Stepping out of the dormitory, he ran into Liam, who was emerging at the same moment. Observing the slight tension in Liam's shoulders, Ethan knew his friend was feeling overwhelmed. He stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on Liam's shoulder and offering a few words of gentle encouragement. Liam let out a visible breath, the rigid knot of anxiety in his posture visibly loosening. The school had mandated that the ceremony begin at 8 a.m., with the central playground designated as the assembly point. After leaving the dormitories and grabbing breakfast in the cafeteria, the two made their way to the vast, open expanse of the central grounds. From a surging tide of students had already gathered. The crisp, unfamiliar fabric of their school uniforms confirmed that they were all freshmen of the 52 cohort. Ethan and Man joined the flow, moving into the heart of the crowd. Within the bustling energy of the central playground, two young women sharing a dorm room were engaged in hushed conversation. They were Clara and Amelia. "Clara, you're going to see your Ethan classmate again soon. Aren't you excited?" Amelia teased, a bright smile playing on her lips. "Wes, you're right, okay." Ever since Amelia had discovered Ethan and Clara studying together in the library, she had fallen into a giddy state of gossip, peppering Clara with such remarks. She knew that their connection was nothing more than good classmates at most, just friends. How could it possibly be as dramatic as Amelia suggested? Clara chose to let the subject drop. Soon enough, Amelia's interest waned, and she returned to a more normal rhythm of conversation. Suddenly, the murmur of freshman chatter reached Clara's ears. "Look, isn't the international student who awakened S-Ranki's elemental power?" They were talking about him on the campus forum. "Wow, he's so tall. He's walking this way." Upon hearing the mention of S-Rank Ice, Clara initially thought it might be Ethan and started to turn around in greeting. Then she realized who it was. It wasn't Ethan, it was clearly a foreigner. This international student was none other than Jack. "Hello, beautiful lady. May we get to know each other?" Jack couldn't help but swallow hard, his gaze lingering on Clara's stunning beauty and inviolable figure. He then adopted an air of practiced elegance as he approached her. Clara frowned slightly, a flicker of displeasure crossing her face. The sheer burning intensity in Jack's eyes was too obvious to ignore. His constant focus on her chest was blatant. How could anyone not notice? "I apologize," Clara said, keeping her tone cool and measured. "But I have no intention of getting to know you." "All right then, beautiful lady. Have a wonderful life." Jack maintained his performance until the very end, stepping back with an exaggerated flourish. "Wow, this girl is so pretty. I didn't even notice her before." "Wait a mick, I think there was a post saying that the Xia family's daughter came to our school. Could it be her?" "The Xia family? Is it the Xi family that has a 7th level grandmaster?" Listening to the whispers around him, Jack, who had conquered the long-haired senior the night before, felt an inexplicable surge of desire to conquer her. Not only was she top tier in looks and figure, but she was also a wealthy heiress. If he could win her over, his future life would be unimaginable perfection. Jack's current delusion must have been fueled by last night's charge, which had clearly scrambled his brain. Just as Jack was luxuriating in the vision of his perfect future, the sound of Clara and Ethan laughing together drifted toward him. Jack snapped his head around and saw them. Good grief, she was giving me such a hard time just moments ago, and now she's chatting and laughing with other male students. Fortunately, Jack wasn't entirely foolish, so he managed to keep the clownish smirk from his face. He vowed that when the freshman competition arrived, he would teach Ethan a lesson. This public display had utterly humiliated him. Then this beautiful lady would know who possessed boyfriend power. As Ethan walked toward Clara, he also noticed Jack watching them. "Is this the exchange student who, like me, awakened an S-rank ice type ability?" Ethan glanced at Jack and noted the palpable hostility in his gaze. "Both," asked "I'm ice type." "Perfect. I'd like to test my skills against you too," Ethan mused internally. Thus, without knowing that Ethan also possessed an S-level ice type ability, Jack developed a deep-seated animosity toward him, all because of Clara. Ethan, sensing the challenge and aware of Jack's previous hostility, felt the familiar itch for a fight. New students." A voice suddenly rang out from the platform before them. The sound cut through the playground like a physical blade, instantly silencing every freshman present. All eyes turned toward the podium. The vast central grounds, filled with over 1,000 new students, fell into an immediate, profound silence. Because the person speaking on the podium was Robert, the president of 8th Elgard Academy. His current level stood at mid-8th rank, and the sheer aura he involuntarily exuded caused many freshmen to feel their legs grow weak, a psychological effect that had nothing to do with his intent.